Hello. Passionate about sustainability, energy and climate? You're in the right place. Welcome to Energetic. I'm Maureen Cornelis, and together we will engage with people who dedicate their lives to climate justice and making a just energy transition happen. They may be activists, scientists, policymakers, or other enthusiasts, just like you. Let the life stories and insights inspire you to build a better future for people and the planet. Welcome to the show. Let's meet today with Duygu Kutluay, a Berlin-based campaigner with Europe Beyond Coal and Beyond Fossil Fuels, fighting for a future powered by renewables and local energy solutions. Originally from Turkey, Duygu brings a global perspective to her work shaped by her background in international relations and years of environmental advocacy. Between her mission to leave fossil fuels behind and raising her lively twin boys, Duygu life is all about energy, both at home and in the fight for a cleaner and fairer world. Duygu, welcome to Energetic.
Hi, Maureen. Thank you very much for the invitation and the nice introduction.
So, you have been working for 15 years in renewable energy and climate solutions. Tell me a little bit more about your journey and some milestones and lessons learned along the way.
Yeah. Thank you. This is such a lovely question as an opportunity to look into the past. I guess I always wanted to work on an area that can have a positive impact on the society. But as a breaking point, I don't know if it is even before 15 years, like going back to 25 years, I would mention like back in early 2000s, I was part of a group preparing for a youth declaration for Rio Plus 10. And it was really nice for me to see as a fresh university student, people who are actually doing in life what they preach. And I guess that showed me another life, another future can be possible after graduation. So I stayed on the path and I worked for many years on sustainable land management practices. And this gave me an opportunity to travel around Anatolia, travel globally, meeting really inspiring communities in Bolivia, doing agroecology for quinoa production, camel herders in India, rooibos cultivators in South Africa. And these communities inspired me a lot on trying to find local solutions that not only enhance their livelihood, but the environment they live in and also have a much wider global impact. I, on the other hand, was born in Istanbul. As you said, I come from Turkey. It's a mega city. I have no rural agricultural background or roots. So I thought maybe focusing on what we do at cities, our lifestyles, our consumption patterns and our impact would be a better suit for me. So that I used to be with Greenpeace, and when they offered me a position to work on climate and energy solutions, I thought that is a good mixture of both the area I work on, but on the solutions aspect as well. And now I'm at Beyond Fossil Fuels for over 4 years now, and we transitioned from Europe Beyond Coal. And I think I take particular joy in my work now as well, because one thing, our campaign is a coalition of 79 partner organizations throughout Europe, so the wider European geography, not only EU, but also UK, Norway, Ukraine, Western Balkans, and Turkey. And we focus on the decarbonization of the power system. So we focus on a narrower field of energy transition, so to say, more on power and heating sector transition, which, if you look at the studies that came out before COP this year, power sector is the biggest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions and not only carbon dioxide. So, and it's also the lowest hanging fruit if it is okay to say. We already have mature technologies. We already know how it can be implemented. We have lots of examples. So yeah. And at the BFF Coalition, I focus on the local energy solutions part, because this is a huge task to make the power sector fossil-free and fully renewable-based so we have colleagues and partners working on the energy market design, electricity market design. We have colleagues working on just transition and on certain coal plants and gas infrastructure. So I work on the local energy solutions part, which tries to make this transition also beneficial to smaller actors, so municipalities, communities, SMEs, but also driven by them just because they want to be part of this transition or they deploy themselves. And it's really nice to work on because I firmly believe that climate action, energy transition is the way to build a fairer, cleaner, nicer society that we want to live in the future. And energy transitions offers so much opportunities for everyone to be part and reap the benefit. And I take joy in working with communities and smaller actors and municipalities, SMEs, to make it possible.
I love the fact that you say it out loud, that it brings you a lot of joy to work with so many different partners on different aspects. And I mean, the fact that you have this experience from all around the world, working with, as you said, rooibos planters from South Africa and being born in Istanbul, which is one of the most exciting cities around the planet and now you bring all this kind of different experience in your work in Beyond Fossil Fuels. It makes quite an inspiring mix. As you said, it's also about, there is so much power in the narrative, how you frame things. You want to build a future that is better for you, as you also said, and as we can see from if somebody watches a clip of this stats, you have drawings from your kids in your background. So it's also about building a world where you children will wants to live now and will want to live in the future too. So that's super inspiring. Thank you so much, Duygu. So all around the planet and in particular now around Europe, as you've been saying, where you've been working, you've been seeing also some different priorities, maybe some different challenges, and maybe there are some lessons to be learned from how energy solutions are implemented at the local level in one place or another. So I know you have a lot of examples to share, and I don't want to take too much of the mic time. So what are for you the most inspiring examples from around Europe at large?
Yeah, I think working on Europe at this time in particular in energy transition is meaningful in various ways because as we see in the last years and as we see now, even at the last COP, that Europe is leading the energy transition. And if we get things right in Europe, that will be a very good role model for the rest of the world. So Europe is facing that challenge with the speed and scale it wants to build a fossil-free system. And not as ambitious as we civil society wants, but still an ambitious one compared to the rest of the world. And the second challenge is to do it right. Like you said, the one that respects ecosystems, benefits communities. And one of the things that is a challenge for renewable, you also addressed in your previous episodes with our colleague from EEV, with Cosimo, is the space. I think it's fair to say renewables take up more space than the current generation. So what we try to do is also inspired by their study, by EEV study, that only 2% of the land, of EU's land is enough for the transition, but also looking at the joint research centers of the Commission studies that there are ample space out there. So when we are trying to make examples visible, like the one you mentioned, that we collect them in a local energy solution map that I can further explain later, we try to find sites that make sense, that have a huge potential that are not utilized, that are underutilized, and once they are used, benefit communities as well, and all these that take part in the action. So we look at, for example, railroad infrastructure. And we have one inspiring example from the UK that is because it is a longer experience there where they have energy garden projects. They are turning the railroad stations into not only renewable energy production sites, but also a place for community gardening. So building sustainable agricultural practices with the community.
So how does it work in practice? Are they building, like, let's say, solar panels or some roofs over the railroad stations to plant some solar panels and plant some gardens? That sounds that sounds really cool, but also a little bit science fiction-y. So tell me more.
And this is actually what we are trying to do with our local energy solutions map for all those inspired audiences, that they can visit the map and sort according to actors, size, technologies, and the key benefits to the society that this project highlight, and come across many projects. And if you look at the Energy Garden project that I gave an example of, which is also in our map, they are working since 2011. So it's not a new project, and they are working on London's railway stations. So trying to turn them into food and energy hub. There are solar installations, but also vegetable garden run by local people. So there has been almost 30 projects when we last checked for our map, and it engages with people in climate solutions in such a metropolitan area and in some of the most deprived neighborhoods of London. There is, on the one hand, hands-on training and educational programs. So the initiative empowers especially young people to cultivate skills in sustainable food growing, healthy living, renewable energy. But it also helps improve the air quality by increases biodiversity in an urban setting. And it's also beneficial economically. It has a 4% annual return on investment. That's for participants that are willing to invest in the program. And projects like this, for example, we also have lots of examples on solar installations on football stadiums, or we have some pilot projects or projects done on public buildings of landmark value. So this is also good for what you mentioned on the narrative setting part of, because it's part of an urban culture to visit a railroad station or to visit a stadium and to see there on first hand the real life deployment, the real life implications of the renewable energy transition. I believe that helps also to showcase that climate action can be beneficial to all.
Yeah, and that's indeed like getting inspired by the stories. But what you just said about showing that's a win situation, demonstrating is kind of also the way forward, right? Because there are many voices that will say the energy transition costs a lot, but they don't really see that it also brings a lot of benefits. It improves the life of the people. It improves the air quality. It addresses urban heat island effects. It lowers, if you have like also a garden where you grow vegetables, it lowers the price of the food and the quality of the food. So all in all, it has impact on the health and the health expenditure of the population. So it improves productivity. So this is also economically sensitive in a way. But yeah, what we have been saying is a lot of opposition, like, no, this is the transition costs. Where what you say is, no, it's actually taken together. It's so much more positive for the people and for the economy as well, and for social cohesion. So that's like a winner. But I guess that many of the projects that you've been following, accompanying, etc., have also seen some backlash, right? Is it around more like the economic aspect, or is it more around social aspects? And if they have been backlash, how were they addressed?
So before we start this obviously not to convince you. I'm sure you're already convinced, but when we talk about the cost of energy transition, sometimes what we forget is the cost of inaction in terms of climate change. So it's not whether or not it's costly or what is the cost of transition happening, but that we have to do it, and we have to do it in a way that the benefit of this transition is enjoyed by all, or is some of the tangible benefits like improvement of air quality, like reducing of the carbon emissions is widely known. But what we as civil society want is not replacing like for the like. So the centralized fossil fuel infrastructure in energy production, in power production, where only a few profit from this, and then the rest of the society has to live with the costs or externalities of this investment. It translates to the new energy system as well, the new energy transition as well. Yes, we need utility scale big projects as well as community projects, but we have to design them in a way that respects ecosystem and that shares their benefits with communities. Whether this is safeguarded by law, legally, as in some countries, or as the local actors demanding that and their voices being heard. But we have to make that happen for the energy transition to catch up with the speed and scale needed for climate action.
And really one of the ways you do it is also through mobilizing small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, on the energy transition. So how do you make that happen? And what have you found to be effective strategies in getting them both involved and really invested, like really committed at many different levels?
We have been focusing on SMEs for the last couple of years, and they are like over 90%, they constitute over 90% of Europe's all businesses, but also because like they are on the ground producing the backbone of the European economy, providing the employment they like the biggest employment in Europe. So when they change, when SMEs change, then it will be really a game changer for the European electricity system as well. So we try to understand what motivates SMEs, what their concerns are. We cooperated with Duygu on the aftermath of the European energy crisis last time. And then we asked them several questions on how they were affected by the energy crisis, what they see as a way out, whether they would be willing to act. And we did a survey with 1,500 SMEs in 6 countries. So Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Greece, and Czechia and Poland to have a bit of a glimpse of different regions of Europe. And there, the findings say maybe it's not as polarizing as we think climate action or climate policies, at least for energy transition, as we are made to believe by certain sources, because they overwhelmingly, of course, the replies were that the energy crisis affected SMEs, made them less profitable and drove price increase. But also a significant chunk of SMEs know that this energy crisis was a result of dependency on fossil fuels and blame the fossil fuels for high energy costs. And they support more solar and wind to build resilience, and actually are already acting on solutions, whether it's deploying themselves or increasing the energy efficiency measures, installing heat. So they are already, when they can, taking action. And what was, I think, most significant outcomes of the study was 3 out of 4 SMEs said they would be willing to take action if their national barriers were removed and there was additional support. So this is most of the time, like also on our conversations with municipalities, especially with our smaller actors, also with local actors in just transition regions, SMEs. So this seems to be a common thread in all, they are willing to take action in terms of a renewable energy transition. But one thing is the experience exchange, the networking of knowledge, technical support that is missing and that they really want easier access to. And then I will follow with two more easier accesses is one to funding, because most of the time, yes, there's money for transition in Europe, but it's more difficult for smaller actors to access this funding. And then the rest is the technical barriers, so accessing the grid. So as you say, I come from Istanbul and now I live in Berlin, and from an individual perspective, what I see as a big difference in terms of like being more environmentally conscious, or it's so much easier here because there is the necessary infrastructure, and some actions are mandated by law. So it is way easier to implement climate solutions when the environment is right for it. Like there is either because it's dictated by a national authority or because there is easy infrastructure to take action.
Yeah, and
From
it's
an individual level to bigger utility scale.
Yeah, and it's not only about the infrastructure that eases the capacity to take action, but it's the access to funding, access to technology, access to information, and having dedicated places where you can actually do something, right? Because, I mean, if it's not your core business to be in energy efficiency, as a SME that already needs to deal with different clients, perspective, regulation, and so on. In a way, it's also understandable that why they wouldn't care so much, right? It's human after all. So it's about really facilitating all of this, right? To make sure that the SMEs do reap the benefit of the transition too. And I mean, that's an really interesting angle, because I think they have been quite forgotten in the overall conversation. Another category of end users that has been overlooked is like the middle class, because there has been a lot of work over the years on vulnerable consumers and people with special needs, people in energy poverty, etc. But the middle class is also facing some of the issues, and they may not have the financial means to deal with everything or the information or everything. And it's really about mobilizing the people who maybe at heart do care, but in practice don't know how to do it, right?
Yes, indeed. Very interesting point. Also, going back to the study, one of the biggest findings of the study was those who have been most hurt by the energy crisis were the least planning to take action. So as you say, there are lots of priorities, different priorities there, different concerns there. Like those who can dedicate more time, more human capital, more resources into this is already acting to a certain extent. But those who have to deal with the day-to-day crisis, it's a bit harder to prioritize the energy transition. That's the same thing we see with municipalities and communities as well. And that's one of the aims of our campaign, to make these possibilities of energy transition benefit more visible, but also easier to access or easier to be made to connect on a day-to-day basis. As for the middle class, also you are totally right. And we in the past did a campaign for rooftop solar in Turkey. And there was so much interest. But there comes a point when you live with a bunch of frustrated people how to proceed, because there's a legislative barrier, or there is, I don't know, technical problem of accessing the grid or getting the permission. So if we want this transition as fast as it should be, the nation states has to also embrace that and put that vision forward to make this transition accessible to all. And the EU is working on that to an extent. And it's really nice to see, for example, on technologies that has not been in the past connected to communities. Like now we are seeing these debates on including of non-price criteria on offshore wind tenders for how to get these neighboring communities involved, etc. These are really good discussions and has to be the norm rather than a nice to have aspect of what we want to achieve.
It's really interesting that you mentioned Turkey and people trying to get some rooftop solar, etc. I mean, it's a very long time ago. I did work with Turkish entrepreneurs, and I was really genuinely impressed by the dynamism of these entrepreneurs. They really wanted to roll up their sleeves and do a lot of things. So is it, as far as you know, is it still the case? Is the Turkish market still very dynamic and are they also in this kind of mindset where they also understand the power of renewable energy? Is it something that you see being a little different from the rest of Europe?
I think the trend for businesses to keep their regional competitiveness or to build their resilience against energy crisis. This is not only for Turkey, but speaks to the wider geography as well. Also for individuals to cut back on their energy bills, to be having the autonomy to produce their own electricity. These kind of things I think resonate across the geography. But yes, Turkey as well, now I think more and more we see renewable installation done by actors of all sizes. And the more people see benefit, the more they want to implement themselves. So the question is, how can we make it easy for those involved? And it doesn't have to be, it can be energy communities having all the necessary legislation that makes it possible to form and produce via energy communities, which in Turkey still doesn't exist. That's why I gave the example of energy communities, or making benefit sharing of utility scale larger renewable installations, renewable projects mandatory or more easily accessed. These kind of things, I think, help throughout the geography. Some countries are more progressive. Some countries are still at the beginning stages of the initial stages of these. But I think overall, those who know the benefits or those who have first-hand experience of this transition demand that are willing to take action to their power, according to their power on that.
So you're feeling very inspired by those communities and organizations you've been working with, right?
Yes, because as you said, I have twin boys, and before I became a mother, I was also getting inspired by these communities and by these people. But more and more, I have more faith on people and like this, because I think they will be the one building the future we need. And it's a great privilege to have access their knowledge and try to advocate for and install all the necessary measures that makes life easier for them to save the planet.
Great. One very last question for you, Duygu. I mean, we have a new European commissioner in charge of housing and energy. We have a new portfolio around just transition and competitiveness by Teresa Ribera. So we have lots of potential for action. Where do you see the priorities for 2025 for the campaign Beyond Fossil Fuel that you are coordinating?
I think we have lots of problems in addition to the problems that are to be caused by climate change or that are being caused by climate change, like energy poverty that you also talk about in your podcast. And polarization, political polarization, all this feeling of, I don't know how to say it, but some people feeling left out of the system or be feeling disregarded. And energy transition or renewable energy projects can offer solutions tackling these. But it's really not in the agenda that much that how energy transition can solve this contemporary problem. That link is most of the time overlooked. And our campaign's priority for the next year is to make these links more visible. And as I said, like making a clean, fair transition is the norm rather than a nice to have feature for developers or for.
Thank you so much, Duygu. It's been such an inspiring and insightful conversation. And I will put the link to your campaign and to the examples and the studies that you mentioned in the show notes so that our listeners can refer to them. And thank you so much. And we are broadcasting in February. So I don't know if we're still in time for saying a Happy New Year, but very Happy New Year to you and to Beyond Fossil Fuel.
Thank you very much. It was such a nice pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Energetic. It's been a pleasure diving deep into the world of sustainability and the just energy transition with some of the most forward-thinking mouths out there. I'm Maureen Cornelis, your host from policy consultancy Next Energy Consumer, and it's been an incredible journey growing this podcast together with you, our knowledgeable and passionate listeners. Since 2021, we've shared countless stories, insights, and ideas over more than 40 episodes, and it's all thanks to your support and enthusiasm. If you enjoyed our journey so far and want to help us keep the conversation going, why not support us on Patreon? Every bit helps us bring more inspiring content your way. Check out the show notes for the link. And hey, if you're a part of an organization that shares our passion for a sustainable and inclusive energy future, we're excited to explore sponsorship opportunities with you. It's a fantastic way to connect with a dedicated audience and make an even bigger impact together. Shout out to the fantastic Igor Mihailovich from Podcast Media Factory for his incredible sound design work, making every episode a joy to listen to. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Energetic on your favorite podcast platform. And if you think a friend or a colleague could benefit from our episode, we'd love for you to spread the word. It helps us grow and keep the energy transition conversation alive. Sharing is caring. Follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn to stay engaged and update on all things energetic. Thanks once again for lending your ears. Until next time.